This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee and YouTube. If you'd like to support me, you can find the links below. The other day I was diligently watching YouTube when I came across this video. Sadhguru aka Jaggi Vasudev's team has done a scientific study that shows you the effect and the impact of Shambhavi mahamudra, which is a breathing technique and meditation course he sells. I've seen the way he misrepresents science in a way that benefits him, and this study isn't any different. But it's been done and reported in a manner that when the average person sees it, they're gonna be convinced of its legitimacy. Now, I don't want this to be just another video where I say something against Sadhguru. How predictable is that coming from me? No, I want this video to be useful to you. Let's use this study as a learning opportunity to see how studies are meant to be designed. We'll look at what are the flaws in the study as well as its good parts. Next time you come across a study, you'll know exactly what to look for. My name is Pranav and you're watching Science is Dope. Let's begin. Now we've got two things here. First, there's this video of him talking about it, and then there's the actual study. Now most people aren't gonna bother reading the study. They're gonna watch the video because it takes less time and it's cognitively easier. So we're gonna look at both the video and the study to see if what he says in the video is actually there in the study. We're not gonna look at the whole video because that'll make this video much longer than it already is, and it's already pretty long. I'm only gonna look at parts of the video. But if you want to check if I'm taking Sadhguru's words out of context or if I'm interpreting him unfairly, feel free to check it out yourself. I'll link the video down below. Now his video starts like this.
Chronic ailments like diabetes, hypertension, asthma, eating disorders, and many of these kinds, which are all essentially generated from within. All these things can be quelled from within if only we are willing to pay a certain level of attention to the innermost dimension of who we are.
I don't know where he's pulling these numbers from because they're not from this study. I've read the whole thing and nothing of this sort is mentioned. Not these diseases, not these numbers. And this is the study he's talking about in the video. He's either just stating it randomly out of nowhere or it's from some unspecified study. I can't comment because no reference is mentioned here. Right off the bat, this is a red flag because the people who are gonna watch this video are gonna conclude that they're from this study.
Recently, these papers have been published, maybe you already read it. A certain group of scientists and doctors in United States, from Indiana University, some from Harvard University and Florida, they studied people who've been practicing inner engineering.
Lots of name dropping of reputed institutes involved in the study. Now, although I was not able to find the name Harvard anywhere in the study, I was able to find Indiana School of Medicine, which is well done because you're minimizing the chance of errors in the study and increasing its reliability by going through reputed institutions. Mind you, you're reducing the chances, you're not reducing it to zero. Now, even though I was not able to find the name of some institutes he mentions here, I will give him a green flag. At the end of this video, let's count up the red flags and the green flags and get an idea of how robust the study is.
The genetic tendencies are changing simply with the inner engineering practices.
No mention of any genetic analysis in the study, so I don't know why he's saying this. Maybe he's pulling this info out of nowhere just to sell it to the viewer. Red flag. Also, what is this genetic tendency? Well, I do know that Sadhguru has a genetic tendency to throw around words that sound scientific but have nothing to do with science. Like, for example, inner engineering has nothing to do with engineering, and yogic technologies have nothing to do with technology.
So they recorded all these things, the biomarkers and everything. One thing that determines the nature of your experience and your mental and emotional condition is what is called as BDNF, that is brain-derived neurotropic factors.
Okay, now we're getting to the meat of the study. I'll tell you what they did with this BDNF biomarkers, but first, what is BDNF? They're basically molecules which attach themselves to specific receptors on the cells to make those cells do certain stuff. BDNF receptors activate neurons that are involved in brain function. Everything Sadhguru said so far is fine. It's a superficial layperson explanation, but the problem starts here.
So the BDNF is higher in a positive way, threefold in 90 days.
So this threefold increase they mentioned is in this completely different study, which says that it was funded by someone from Asia but declares no conflict of interest. There's also a part of the study which says that because of a limited budget, they eliminated some participants from the study. This smells to me like data manipulation to get the results the research funder wanted. I can't say for sure, but all I can do is not take this claim seriously, especially because of their conflict of interest statement, which contradicts what they've said about research funding for the study. This is clearly a red flag. I had another question here. What is this? What is the point of a unit if there are no numbers on the graph? Or is it some interesting stat and graphic that looks sciencey that is just there to dazzle someone who won't look more into it? To someone who is skeptical, this is just hilarious. One more red flag. Okay, at this point, I should probably get into what the study actually did. Sadhguru has a program called BSP, Bhava Spandana program. It involves a 4-day, 3-night stay at their Isha Center. It involves special vegetarian food, nature hikes, and live music along with meditation, and that's where the Shambhavi mahamudra comes in. Now, this program is conducted in many parts of the world. This particular study was done on the participants that attended their program conducted at the Isha Center in Tennessee, USA. Now, what they did was they got the participants of the program to go through 2 steps. One was an online survey conducted before, right after, and then 1 month after the program. The people who participated in the survey were given the option to take part in the blood biomarker part of the study. Their blood was drawn at 2 points, 2 days before the program and 2 days after it. The blood was then tested for the levels of these molecules. Let's first admire this beautiful name here, Anandamide, which comes from the Sanskrit word Ananda, meaning bliss. It's just a beautiful name. Whoever named it, thumbs up to you, my friend. They're trying to study the impact of meditation and meditative practices like the Shambhavi Mahamudra on these molecules in our blood, on these biomarkers. Okay, now of these, we've already talked about BD enough. What about the rest of the molecules? They're called endocannabinoids. What are they? Let's hear Sadhguru explain what they are.
You know what is a cannabinoid? In India it is known as ganja, or everywhere else it's known as marijuana. But essentially, these are plant extracts which have a certain influence on the mood and experience of the person. But there are millions of cannabis receptors both in your brain and across the body, because you are supposed to produce it, you're not supposed to smoke it.
Alright, I'd say this is a very surface level explanation to the layperson on what cannabinoids are. If I were a layman, this explanation is enough. But if we're gonna read the study, then we have to elaborate this explanation a little bit. Because there are some flaws here in what Sadhguru said.
You know what is a cannabinoid? In India it is known as ganja, or everywhere else it's known as marijuana.
Okay, the plant is not called cannabinoid, it's called cannabis. The different extracts from this plant are the cannabinoids. In the 80s, scientists discovered that there are receptors in the brain that get activated by molecules extracted from cannabis like THC, CBD, etc. Hence the name cannabinoids. But why would the human brain have receptors for these plant extracts? Could the human body itself produce molecules that could activate these receptors? That led to the discovery of a molecule that was then named after the Sanskrit word for bliss, Ananda. It was called Anandamide. Soon followed the discovery of other cannabinoids that are produced within the body. Collectively, these were called endocannabinoids, and the cannabinoids that came from plants were called phytocannabinoids. Now, what this study was trying to do was to see if this program and this meditation had any effect on the endocannabinoids level in the blood.
With the inner engineering practices, it's clearly… the biomarkers clearly establish that your endocannabinoid production is significantly higher. That means you're stoned by yourself.
Oof, 3 times higher? Where is that finding? Let's look at the reference Sadashivam et al. That's this paper. The data that they obtained has nothing to show this kind of change. It does show improvement, but how much of that improvement is reliable data? I have to say at this point that it looks like they were hoping that no one would actually read this paper and would just be impressed by the sciencey looking graphic that actually is meaningless. All of this gets a red flag. I've seen the rest of this video. It's just marketing for Sadhguru's inner engineering. But if you want to look at it more closely, again, I'll link it in the description. Now let's properly look at this study and examine what they've done. I've already given you a basic rundown. There was a survey and then there was a blood biomarker study of the people that attended the BSP program to learn the impact of these Isha meditation practices and their impact on the levels of these biomarkers in the blood. Now the first part of the study, the surveys and everything involves self-reporting. As the study itself states, the only people allowed to participate in this program are the ones who are already inner engineering practitioners themselves. These are Sadhguru followers reporting on how they feel after attending Sadhguru's program. Any sort of self-reported data from these biased set of people becomes automatically unreliable. Now notice that Sadhguru himself never mentioned anything about the survey part of the study in the video. Only the biomarkers study. Because people intuitively know that that is more objective. So we'll also look at only that. The first thing is that this study has been reported in a questionable journal, evidence-based complementary and alternative medicine journal. Nearly every single alternative medicine journal I've seen lacks peer review. Even the ones that do have it, it's never thoroughly done. And here's why good peer review is important. It looks at whether the study was designed properly. It looks at the calculations and the analysis and sees if it's done correctly. It looks at the results and whether the inference drawn is reasonable based on the findings, based on the data. It looks at whether there are biases in the study design that could influence the results. What's even worse is that this study has been reported in a journal that has been flagged and delisted, as you can see on retraction watch, for failing to meet quality criteria. This is a red flag. Now, the journal being delisted doesn't automatically mean that the study is flawed. For that, we have to look at the study itself. So let's do that. We should first discuss why we want to do studies in the first place. Like, if you want to figure out if meditation has positive effects on a person, why not get someone who practices meditation and ask them if they feel better? I mean, that is how Sadhguru prefers to do things.
Now there is scientific evidence. We always knew this, but today a meter has to say it. If a man says it, it's not true. If a man says it, it's doubtful. But a meter has to say it. Now the meters are saying it.
Sadhguru, this is why we do research. Let's say you want to see if meditation has positive effects. Showing that someone who meditated had positive changes is not enough. We have to consider the other factors that could have led to the same results and then eliminate them one by one. Then we can be more sure that meditation is what led to those positive effects. Simply put, we do research if there are many factors that could have led to a certain result, and we want to figure out the effect of any one of those factors. Let's say we have a person who practices Shambhavi mahamudra kriya and he feels good. Now, it could be the meditation that is making him feel good, but what if it's something else? Maybe they made a recent change in their diet and that's what's making them feel good. I know that's a hypothetical example, but that drives the point home. There could be other factors biasing our results. So to avoid that, we asked multiple people who all practice this Shambhavi mahamudra kriya if they all feel good. It's less likely that they all made the same change in their diet and that's what's making them feel good. Basically, the factors that could influence the result in one person, it's less likely that they'll influence the result in all these people. This is the first thing that a study should do, increasing the sample size. This study is done on a sample of 142 participants, which is decent for a pilot study, and so green flag. Now, what else could influence results? So if a person strongly believes that something's gonna help them and if they do it, they might mentally start feeling better. But often what they feel in their heads does not translate to reality. For instance, someone might have back pain and go to a faith healer.
Burning this arthritis!
After the session, they might feel better, but later when they get back home, the pain would be back. So the pain not being there was something in their heads, something they mentally felt. So asking the people how they felt tends to bring in their personal biases. It's very subjective. This study, like I said, has surveyed a bunch of Sadhguru followers on how they felt after attending Sadhguru's program. That is the literal definition of asking for subjective biased results. So how can we get an objective and unbiased result out of this? We collect their blood and test it for biomarkers that show that a person is feeling good. This is objective. This study has done both the survey as well as the blood biomarker testing, but we're only going to look at the objective results, and so this is going to be a green flag. Moving on now, this study has been conducted at Sadhguru's Isha Center in Tennessee, USA, and it's a 4-day, 3-night study, like I said, involving things like nature hikes and live music in addition to the meditation sessions. There was also in-house food that was provided to these participants. We know for a fact that exercise activates the endocannabinoid system, and so does diet. Chocolate, for example, contains anandamide. The participants were also in a new environment. That means fresh air, and they were away from that urban lifestyle, and the temperature and humidity were at a comfortable level. All these factors could affect the result. So what have they done to prevent the effect from any of these factors? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is the most crucial thing that they should have done. And it's also the main reason why the results of this study are unreliable. What should they have done? Have a control group. What is a control group? It's a group of study participants that we use to control the effects from other factors. Usually in a medical trial, we divide the participants into 2 groups, and to one group we give the medicine and the other group a placebo, which is a substance with no medical effect. Then we look at the difference between both the groups. Now we can be more sure that if any other factors like age or gender or diet or environment or some activity they do affects the results, they will influence both groups. And still, if there is any significant difference between the groups, then we can be more sure that it's because of the medicine. But Pranav, wait, how can we have a control group here? This study is not on any medicine we're testing, it's on a meditation program. I'll tell you how. How about we divide the participants into 2 groups? One group gets the whole program with no changes. The other group gets everything in the program except the meditation session. So they get the diet, the hiking, the music, everything. That way we get to see if the meditation in the program has an effect on the blood biomarkers. If it does, then one group will have a significant change over the other. If it doesn't, then both groups will have the same change. And this is crucial for a study like this because we know that biomarkers like BDNF and endocannabinoids are significantly influenced by physical activity. Not to mention things like diet and experiences like live music, which are all part of this program. In my opinion, this is the biggest flaw in their study design. Now we have no idea if the changes were due to the meditation in the program or because of any other physical activity or something that was part of the program. We have no idea if we can create the same changes in people without any meditation with only these other activities. So clearly, for not having a control group, this study gets a red flag. Let's keep going because there's more. I took a look at the demographics of the study. And look at this, almost 70% of the participants were Indians. The rest had all the other races with some in very small, insignificant numbers. And this table is for the whole study, including the survey. The blood biomarker study had a much smaller part of this. Now, why is this important? Usually with things like anxiety, mental health, genetics plays a very important role. But we want to try and eliminate the effect of genetics and see how much meditation can help. So what we want to try and do is we want to make sure we have enough people from all races, ages, genders, etc. in both groups. We can even mix them up before the study for further randomization. We have to do this to ensure those factors don't affect our final results. So for randomization, the study gets a red flag. And there's more. This study just mentions that the participants have taken part in the BSP program. That's it. No further details about what happens during BSP. speed. Just that it's a meditation program. I had to find out all this information myself. Usually in a study, there's a clear description of what the participants went through, but that's not there over here. And if they had access to the participants for collecting their blood, etc., my guess is that this study is either done by Isha or is strongly associated with Isha. Also, Sadhguru endorsed the findings of the study to promote his program. Isn't that a clear financial motivation? Isn't that a clear conflict of interest? If it's not, then shouldn't there be more clarification than just what they've written? Other than this conflict of interest statement, which looks very generic, like they've copy pasted from somewhere, there is nothing they've stated. This is clearly a red flag. You look at these 5 things in any study, and if you get green flags, the results of that study are very reliable. That's my analysis. Tell me if you have any arguments against it in the comments below. I will read them. Now let's tally up the flags. 9 red flags and 3 green flags. Doesn't look robust, does it? Here's my take on all this. Whenever you make an extraordinary claim like, I have a meditation program that'll treat your mental health outcomes with no medication, you need extraordinary evidence to back that up. Not flimsy evidence like this paper with so many red flags. Unless of course you don't really care about evidence, you're just doing a study so you can market it in front of people and convince them to sign up.
Now there is scientific evidence. We always knew this, but today a meter has to say it. If a man says it, it's not true. If a man says it, it's doubtful. But a meter has to say it. Now the meters are saying it.
Don't get me wrong, my aim with this video was not to show that meditation does not help or that it's ineffective, and I've not shown that. What I have shown is that this study and its findings, its results are very weak in terms of evidence and do not support this claim. Now you can disagree with me here, but I'm of the opinion that Sadhguru, like he usually does, is misrepresenting science in order to further his own ideas. Quite often he does it in a way like this, where it seems legitimate to the average person, and it just isn't. The reason we do research is to try and advance our knowledge, and I absolutely resent anyone who hijacks that process to promote their business using studies like these. I understand now why this paper could not be published in a legitimate peer-reviewed journal, because they would have instantly spotted the flaws of this paper and would not have published it. Special thanks to Dr. Libin Abraham, Dr. Harish Tarail, Dr. Shinsmon Jose, and Dr. Abby Phillips for helping me out with this video. Let me know how you like this kind of content. I'll be sure to make more of these depending on your response. But making risky content like this is not a great move for me. Calling out religious and spiritual figureheads makes no financial sense. Sponsors don't want to associate with this content. YouTube ad revenue is really bad, and there's always a risk of demonetization. But I still made a shift in this direction nearly 2 months back. And the only reason it worked is because you guys stepped in. I'm able to support both myself and this content thanks to generous support from all of you. I've been able to keep putting out content without help from a single sponsor on my videos since I decided to make this switch. Let's see how long we can keep that going. Support from you goes a long way. Especially continuous support. If you do decide to support me even a little bit, I've got links down below for you. I highly recommend Patreon support, that way you get rewards. I've recently revamped my YouTube memberships as well. They've got rewards similar to Patreon now, feel free to check them out. But you can also do a one-time support on Buy Me Coffee or UPI. If you like this video, you might also like this one. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, remember, science is dope.